Please be advised that the views and opinions of the host and guests do not reflect those of the station, the management, and its network. Face the nation.
Hello everyone, I'm Butch Serrano.
And I'm Daniza Lopez, and welcome to Face the Nation.
Thank you, Danny. In our continuing series of understanding international relations in one of the farthest continents in the world, we are here today to know more about one of the fastest growing economic countries in Africa, Botswana.
And to give you a little insight, Botswana is one of Africa's most stable countries in terms of being one of the world's fastest growing economies and one of the continent's longest multi-party democracy. A feat even more impressive when you consider that Botswana is one of Africa's most sparsely populated country.
And to talk about all this and more, we welcome Botswana's ambassador, His Excellency Major General Gotseline Morake. Welcome to Face the Nation, Mr. Ambassador Morake.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We are truly honored and privileged to have you with us here, considering that one of the farthest continents in Asia is the African continent. How many hours was your flight, if you don't mind me asking, coming to the Philippines?
The flight was about just over 4 hours, 4.5 hours, because we were coming from Tokyo. So we cover the Philippines from our embassy in Tokyo. So from Tokyo, I'm responsible for 4 countries. Yeah, that is Japan itself, South Korea, Thailand, and the Philippines. Yes.
So, Mr. Ambassador, just this is our getting to know you portion. Most of the great diplomats in our history had some sort of a military background. Among them, I've read about Napoleon, who was a consul before, and one of my idols growing up during the Reagan administration was General Alexander Haig. During the 1980s, he was a military strategist, and he became a Secretary of State in the United States. Having a military background, how does that help in diplomacy? Is it because of a better temperament than the rest of us?
There's a very close relationship between a military background and diplomacy, because actually you both serve international relations at from different angles. One, you serve it from the military angle, and the other one you serve it from a civil angle. And when you're in the military, before you do any operations, you have to have a very good understanding of the environment, because to solve any problem, whether politically or militarily, you have to understand what are the issues on the ground. And in the military, we are taught about various regions and what are the geopolitical situations prevailing in there, because you have to attend to every situation with a lot of empathy.
I see. That's a great insight. Don't you think so, Danny?
Yes. Mr. Ambassador, most of our Filipino viewers are curious to know more about your country, since Africa have always been a place that has piqued Asian interest for many centuries. How would you describe the state of Botswana right now, which is one of the most beautiful areas on earth? And how has our diplomatic relations and understanding deepened in the last few years?
Well, first of all, Botswana became independent in 1966. We were a British colony, and we were fortunate in that since we gained independence in 1966, we have always been a democratic state. Since 1966, we have held elections every 5 years without fail, all the time. And so actually we are the longest serving and continuous democracy on the African continent.
Botswana is committed to conserve and protect wildlife. Can you share some conservation efforts that are in place?
Botswana, yes, you are right. Botswana has a very big stake in conservation.
Especially the famous Kalahari Desert, right?
It's the Kalahari Desert and to the northern part in the Chobe and the Okavango. And uniquely, we have put aside 1/3 of the country for conservation, which is a wildlife reserve. Animals, we have what is called game reserves. And in there, animals are conserved. We give them space, and so they are able to multiply without too much of a human disturbance. And we had the vision of understanding that wildlife conservation will bring about in the future benefits from tourism. So tourism in Botswana is the second largest source of revenue for the country.
Well, I'm sure your tourism areas are very, very beautiful. And here in the Philippines, we hold Africa as one of the great countries that has maintained or preserved its wilderness, not only through the years but through the decades as well. But may I go back to Botswana being a young democracy, and maybe a young democracy, but for the past few decades, you have had the reputation of having incorruptible leaders and also a very, very good track record in terms of human rights. How do you attribute this? Is it because of the present administration, or is it because of your belief in the goodness of mankind?
Yes, Botswana, we are very lucky in that our original leadership, we had very principled leaders right from the time we got independence. Even before independence, we had a lot of consultation between the leadership in terms of the chiefs and the people, and we always discussed everything. The concept of democracy to Botswana is not new. We have traditionally held a system whereby we discuss everything. And by their nature, the people of Botswana are not selfish people. We have a very strong family system. We don't believe in leaving other people behind in terms of others being very poor and others being very rich. And we believe in sharing resources. And we feel that everybody must be secure. Everybody must have. And hence, we are a very giving people. And also, because of the adoption of democracy, democracy calls for accountability. Very early on, we were accountable. Therefore, elections and the change of the people's ability to change their leaders makes leaders to be accountable, and therefore less likely to be corrupt. Because if you are corrupt, then in the next elections, you may very well be voted out of power.
Well, that's very true, even in the Philippines.
Yes.
Here in the country, we have been a democracy for more than 100 years.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and we were also for a time, a colony of the British.
Really?
And then for 10 years, a decade or so, we were a colony of the Americans. In our history, we had a decade war with the United States, but now we consider them as brothers, along with other nations as well, as we should always do in terms of diplomacy.
Yes.
With your arrival here as ambassador, how is the state of the Philippine-Botswana relationship?
The Botswana-Philippine relations are very good. We, like I said, we gained independence in 1966. A year later, in 1967, we started our diplomatic relations. That means that very early on. And since then, our relations have grown because our relations are based on shared values, like I said, democracy, the rule of law, respect for human rights, and being responsible members of the international community. And also our shared interest in development for the good of our people, and the nature and character of the Filipino people being very friendly people, and the people of Botswana also being similarly very friendly. So it was sort of like a natural relationship because we had so much in common.
So as a follow-up, Mr. Ambassador, now that we're aware that Philippines and Botswana share the same social structure and values similar to the Philippines, which is the respect for our elder people community. So here in our country, we use opo and po to elders. So can you define or give us how has the Philippines and Botswana differ in its tradition, since we have similarities?
Well, we are, okay, maybe more traditionalist in Botswana, because actually I think Africans are more traditionalist than other people from the rest of the world. We have although we are practicing modern practices like democracy, our traditional system is still very much alive. For example, our government consists of a parliament, but we also have a house of chiefs, which looks after the traditional side of our life, and to ensure that whilst we are practicing modern norms like democracy and things like that, we don't leave behind our traditions as being Africans and as being the people of Botswana. And so we reinforce all the time our traditions, no matter how modern things can become. We never forget our tradition. And those traditions are what keeps together the fiber of our society. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Since you mentioned your government, what are some of the priorities of your government right now in terms of its outlook economically and, well, as you said, culturally, and in terms of its relationship with the rest of the world? Now that you are coming out as a powerhouse economically in the African region.
Botswana, first of all, we are a very humble country, a very humble people, and we believe in living with other people. We don't believe that we don't expect people to harm us, and we don't expect other people to harm other people. So we believe very much in coexistence. You do unto somebody what you expect that person to do unto you. And we believe that people can live together without confrontation, and therefore we subscribe to international law and international norms. We do our part to, as a country, to be a responsible nation to play our part in terms of um, towards world peace, towards helping other countries where we can, especially on the African continent, especially in the region of Southern Africa. We are part of the core of the diplomacy of Southern Africa. And actually, when we come to the international arena, like in the United Nations or the African Union, we share and we reinforce our values and share them with others, so that we all think responsibly for the good of everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad to hear that, because diplomacy is actually a personal manifestation of everyone's sentiments when it comes to how you deal with another person. That's basically diplomacy, being personally close with other people, understanding their cultures, understanding where they came from, doing things that are beneficial to everyone, especially in today's world. But before we end this segment, ladies and gentlemen, I think Danny has one more question before we proceed to another segment.
Yes, thank you. How about its long-term plans, Mr. Ambassador? The world certainly would learn a lot from your country's fast economic progress. What are the key sectors contributing to Botswana's economy?
First of all, I would like to say that Botswana's economy is doing quite well, but we are concerned the fact that our number one foreign exchange and source of revenue is diamonds. As you know, Botswana, as you might know, Botswana is the biggest producer of diamonds by value. The diamonds that come from Botswana are the most valuable, and they bring quite a significant part of revenue to the country. But we are concerned that the base of our economy should be just from one or two products. We would like to diversify our economy so that we have multiple sources of income. Like, for example, we are promoting tourism, we are trying to industrialize, and we have identified education as a big enabler. And so we have introduced free education in Botswana. We want to have skills in Botswana. And actually, one of the things that we would like to learn from the Philippines is the skills that you have, the skills, especially the vocational skills, that Filipino people are very innovative. They are everywhere and they do everything, and you see them all over the world. And so in the long term, we want to have a very balanced economy, an economy that is sustainable, to make sure that tomorrow, when diamonds are no longer there, we've got other multiple sources of income.
Okay, thank you, Botswana Ambassador and Major General Gotsilini Morake. More to come as we take a quick break here on Face the Nation.
Face the Nation. Face the Nation.
Welcome back to Face the Nation. Mr. Ambassador, you recently met with Asian Productivity Organization, or APO, Secretary General Dr. Indra Pradana Singawinata, and informed the leadership about Botswana's National Mindset Change campaign led by President, I hope I pronounced this right, Mongwitsi Eric Kiabetswe Masisi.
President Masisi, yes.
Yes. May we know about the campaign to build upon Botswana's efforts in digitalization and government alignment to unlock everyone's full potential?
Yes, thank you very much. Since after the experience of the COVID pandemic, COVID was very devastating to most countries, including Botswana. And after COVID, led by the President Masisi, we embarked on a campaign which is called a Reset Agenda. We wanted to reset Botswana after the experience of COVID, in that we said we can no longer do things like we used to do before COVID and even during COVID. So we had to change mindsets, to do things differently, to understand that we live in a world of threats like COVID. We had to build resilience into our economy and have our people ready to deal with future such threatening campaigns. We also realized that in order to accelerate our economy, we had to teach our people to think differently and align all of us into one vision so that we can get somewhere together and learn how to use our resources optimally. For example, we export diamonds and other raw commodities like copper in their raw state. And then we said, no, we need to get more value out of those. And that requires a different mindset. It requires also that we develop our value chains such that, for example, we know that if we export one diamond and in its raw form, it will give us maybe $1,000. But if we were to process it and make it jewelry, we could earn 10 times from the same stone. So this whole reset agenda was about changing the mind, and we also realized that to move forward in a globalized world, we have to digitize our country. Digitization brings so many effort, so many advantages. It includes communication, it gives people information, it allows us to deal with other people and to have technical solutions to problems that we might have, like in the health or agricultural sector. So that was what the mindset change was about. That was what the digitalization program was about, and that was what alignment was about. Yes.
May I follow up on something, since you've mentioned that the world has changed a lot during the pandemic? So how does dealing with the international partners and countries differ now since the crisis?
Since the crisis, we have learned that, first of all, that technology is important. It means that we can deal with other people, although we are far away from them, but we can still deal with them using the available means of technology. So we are trying in Botswana to make sure that technology reaches everybody. But we also strategically engage in those partners who we feel will enable us in this world of today to move forward. So we know where we can get advantages from, but also it's important that we also keep close with everybody post the pandemic, although sometimes the pandemic demands that we are distant from each other.
Do you think we need to rethink our approaches to, say, tourism and diplomacy in a changed world?
Tourism must continue, but tourism actually is one of those resilient economic forms, because especially in Botswana, where we have a lot of land a big space. We welcome tourism, but we limit the number of people who can come at a certain time, because overcrowding also becomes a bit problematic. So whilst we encourage tourism, but we still have to look after the environment and the ecosystem. Yeah.
Well, thank you for
Thank
that,
you,
Mr.
Ambassador.
Yes, these are some of the strategies that everyone is tackling post-pandemic, because
Yes.
really the world has changed, and this reset mindset really is very, very important, especially when it comes to geopolitical relationships between countries and peoples of the world. Do you have, this is our last question, and we'd like you to address our Filipino viewers. Since this is your first tour in the country, do you have any messages for the Filipinos out there, and for those of us who would someday hopefully come to your country, to your beautiful country of Botswana?
Yes, I will, excuse me, I will encourage the Filipinos to, Filipinos, at least you travel the whole world, but you don't travel to Africa and to Botswana as much as we would like you to. I would encourage you to come to Botswana, to come and see a different kind of beauty. Your country is very beautiful. Ours is also beautiful, but in a different sense. You must also learn what you can do for us and learn what we can do for you. It's not just a one-sided thing. There's some things that I can show you in my country, and then there are also some things that I can see in Philippines. So I encourage the Filipino people not to be adverse of coming to Africa. Today's Africa is more peaceful, it's very welcoming. There are lots of opportunities for everybody, and I think in today's world, we are all global people, and we must interact as much as possible. Yes.
Well put. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. And there you have it, our sincerest gratitude and thanks to our friend and special guest, Botswana Ambassador and Major General Gotsilini Morake.
Thank
In
you
behalf
very
of my co-host Butch Serrano, I'm Daniza Lopez. Until we meet again here on Face the Nation.
Face the Nation.